Well, folks, today's review marks a major milestone for me. This is my 100th game review on YouTube. It's hard to believe it, but 10 years ago really was the start of something that I'm amazed is still a part of my life. Even before I started doing game reviews, between all the commentaries and the music reviews and the initial game review attempts, I've met a whole bunch of people, some of whom I still consider close friends. It's taken me all over, shown me the good, the bad, the ugly, etc. So, to any of you who are still watching, whether you watched way back when or if you're a newcomer to the channel, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Without your support, who knows where I'd be. I will always be eternally grateful for that. Now that we got that out of the way, what am I going to review today? Do I tackle a big game? Is it business as normal? Or do I go back to where it all started? You know what? This is a celebration. So I say we go back to where it all started and re-review the first game I ever officially reviewed on this channel, and really just dive in deep on it. Metropolis Street Racer. I know what some of you are thinking. Why was this the first game that I reviewed? I didn't have a Dreamcast when it was new. Shoot, I was too young to have one and never did growing up. I didn't play it until I emulated it in high school. Well, that's because it had ties to a series that I actually do have nostalgia for in Project Gotham Racing. Me and my cousins enjoyed the first PGR, and I really love PGR 2 as well. The 360 entries, well, I still haven't gotten around to them even though I do own them. They were more recent purchases, but yeah, maybe later. Let's go. Bizarre Creations was founded in 1988 as Raising Hell Software. They had put out Combat Crazy on the Commodore, as well as the Run and Gun Killing Game Show and platformer Wiz and Liz on the Amiga and Sega Genesis, with the former also appearing on the Atari ST. Sega was not a fan of the name Hell being in the company, so they had to change the name. This was further brought on by a pending submission to Psygnosis and Sony. Founder Martin Chudley threw out the name Weird Concepts on the submission doc. Then, another employee utilized the Microsoft Word thesaurus, and that's how Bizarre Creations came to be. The team originally only started out with 5 members, but they managed to put together a demo called Slaughter. Psygnosis was impressed with them, and they hired them to do a Formula 1 game for PS1. With well-designed tracks, good-looking cars, and a unique game engine that Bizarre Creations made themselves, Formula 1 was a critical and commercial success. They made a second Formula 1 game for PS1 that was also successful. It was those games that caught the attention of Sega Europe, more specifically, senior producer Katsuhisa Sato. Originally with Sega of Japan and known for working on some arcade games like Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder and Outrunners. On top of the Clockwork Knight series on the Sega Saturn, he eventually moved to Sega Europe. Once he found out who made the Formula 1 games, he reached out to the studio and a meeting was arranged with Sega Europe's then CEO, Kazutoshi Miyake. Learning that they offered them the chance to work on a street racing game for the then upcoming Dreamcast, while Sony wanted more Formula 1 games. Bizarre Creations accepted the offer. Development of Metropolis Street Racer started in September of 1997, with a planned build to be finalized in August of 1998. As you'll soon see, the game's ambitions were going to lead it to it taking longer to be made. At first, they didn't know what type of racer they wanted. They toured with several ideas, from a Ferrari-exclusive racer, a Mini Cooper racer, and the first example sort of possibly being an early inspiration for a Ferrari F355 Challenge, and ultimately they decided on the game we now know and love. The game was originally named Sega Street Racer, but Sega was replaced with Metropolis as it made it clearer as to what the game was about. With a proper vision forming, it was time to bring the cities to life. Initially, they tried to just make them look familiar enough, but they didn't look good. So they did something that was almost unheard of for a game of any kind, just in development, let alone this game, at the time. They sent members of their staff to the three cities featured to capture lots of photos and video footage in every nook and cranny of these cities they could find. The choices for these cities were simple. London and Tokyo made sense given the location of the developer and publisher, respectively. San Francisco was chosen when a friend of the dev team went there for work with his wife, who just so happened to be a photographer. E3 1999 was where the game was unveiled for the first time, but some things like the handling, more arcade-like, the camera, and some other things weren't quite worked out. To make matters worse, the lead coder left the company after completing the demo, and the E3 demo was not well received. Some of the things they tried to do to bring the world to life didn't work out as hoped, and the company wasn't doing so well financially, though they did have some money saved from Formula One to keep them going. Sega, though, gave them more time and told them not to worry about making the US/UK Dreamcast launch. Martin Chudley went back into the dev hot seat alongside Tools coder Roger Perkins. This was Chudley's first time programming since the Formula One game, the very first one. They rewrote the engine, increased polygon counts on the cars, changed the camera angle to look less like Wipeout, and the game finally started to take its final form. Not to mention the artist's desire to make realistic-looking cities. I mean, with all this research and the first 6th-gen console, it would be a shame to not use it and make something that stood out. Though they had to balance it for them looking realistic and playing well. This philosophy also applied to the audio of the cars and various other elements in the game, including the kudos system. Even if Sega initially wasn't receptive to the idea, while the vision seemingly kept getting more and more fleshed out, the actual development started to become hell. Everyone was in crunch mode all the time. Some even worked 40 hours of overtime each week for around 14 months. Those 14 months were spent writing the game. Just when you thought the worst was over, guess again. Sega sent a tester to Liverpool where the studio was based. When the final master disc was tested, the demo loop's AI behavior for the cars was not working as intended. Technical director Walter Linsdale had to fix it, but the problems didn't stop there. No music in the front end because some coder disabled it in the release section. Third time was the charm, though. Everything worked as it should have, and Martin Chudley was off to get married. After not having gotten sleep in 2 days, and he had to catch his flight in a thunderstorm. On the same day it was tested, no less. What a story. After that, the game's first PAL release still had several major bugs, but Sega Europe offered a replacement program for people who bought bugged copies, with the final PAL and US release going off fine. Metropolis Street Racer was developed by Bizarre Creations, published by Sega, and exclusively released for the Dreamcast on November 3rd, 2000 for PAL regions, and January 16th, 2001 for North America. A Japanese release was planned for February 22nd, 2001, but it was cancelled once Dreamcast support was ended, even though the Japanese region still kept getting Dreamcast games after its discontinuation. So why this never actually came to fruition, I have no idea. While the game was positively received, the sales figures did not reflect that. The game only sold about 120,000 units, and 101,757 of them were sold in the US. Several reasons for this included the Dreamcast failing, the game releasing later in the lifespan of the console, and the PAL bug issues. Shoot, over £1 million was invested into the game, and Bizarre Creations even talked with Sega about releasing the game on the PS2 to recoup costs, but Sega was still too prideful. Despite all that, Metropolis Street Racer still holds up as a solid racer with a unique twist on standard gameplay, some big introductions that other games picked up on, and solid racing that still makes it a damn good, but tough racer. When you start a single-player game, you'll have to create a profile. Once you create your profile, choose which VMU you want to save your profile to, then load and you can start racing. But before you can even fully start, you'll need to earn a car. You have a garage where you can hold up to 3 cars. When you start, you'll only have 3 cars to choose from. Pick a car. You can then test drive to see how it feels. You can do an exhibition run or challenge for it. The challenge essentially consists of a lap time attack. You are given an infinite amount of tries to beat the time, but you only need to beat it once in order to add that car to your garage. Once you complete the lap, you can customize the registration. If your car is a convertible, you can adjust when you want the top up. You're even allowed to have a hard top for rain, and then you're off. You have 3 main modes of play: street racing, time attack, and quick race. Quick race will allow you to freely race on any unlocked track. You can pick your opponents, how many laps, the time of day, weather, and you can even watch a demo if you just want to watch the AI race. With the time attack, there are separate types here. You have basic time attack, where you try to get the fastest lap times, which can be saved as ghost car laps to your VMU. You have ghost attack, in which you challenge the ghost car laps saved on your VMU, and you can also save those new ghosts to battle to further encourage you to beat your time. You can even do record attack to beat the fastest records. These can come from you, your friends, or internet rankings. The main mode of play in the game is street racing mode. This mode is divided into 25 chapters. Each one has 10 events. There are 6 different types of events. We have Hot Lap, which is essentially time trial modes to get the best time. There are 2 variants of this. There's one variant where you have several laps to hit the target time on a single lap, and the other one has you try to beat the average lap time over the course of 3 laps. Each one counts, so make sure you do well on each lap. You have a timed run, in which you have a certain amount of time to complete one round, typically 3 laps, sometimes more depending on the chapter where the event is. Watch out for other cars that are only going the speed limit. You'll have to go around them. Challenges will usually have you attempt a specific goal, like overtaking a certain number of cars, setting a top speed, or overlapping an opponent within the time limit. One-on-one duel is, well, a one-on-one race with you against another opponent. You can actually adjust how much of a head start they have. Street race is your standard race, not unlike those in Gran Turismo. You can adjust the target position to aim for. Finally, you have championship. You'll have 2 to 5 races in which you have to try to earn the greatest number of points in them. You'll get more points by placing higher. You can adjust target points here. In fact, you can actually adjust target lap times, average times, time to complete a time run, and adjust whatever the game lets you adjust to tailor it towards your level of difficulty. Want to go for a harder time but more kudos? You can. Want a slightly easier time but less? Go ahead. You decide the risk versus reward nature of it all. The risk versus reward nature actually helps enhance an otherwise ordinary racing game. For the most part, the races aren't that different from what you've seen in other games from around this time. You'll drive around the track to accomplish your goal. What makes this game unique from other racers like Gran Turismo is the kudos system. The card that appears before the title screen has 3 definitions for kudos: respect given to a skilled individual, praise is bestowed upon for status achieved, and honor awarded to the ultimate winner. I think each of those definitions apply here in some way, shape, or form. Oh wait, they all kind of mean the same thing. Well, still, no matter how you spin it, the game's tagline is very true here. It's not about how fast you drive, it's about how you drive fast. Well, to that end, you will earn kudos depending on the skills you show while racing. This is called style, and it consists of you doing moves like drifting, power sliding, and navigating through difficult spaces successfully, maybe amongst other things. A message will show when you're earning them, way hey, and the logo will show that as well, the K. But watch out for the walls in other cars. You can lose kudos that way if you run into them. The harder you hit something, the more kudos you may lose. Everything is tallied at the end of a race. Depending on how difficult or easier you made the challenge, with those adjustments, they can also affect kudos earned. The harder the challenge, the more you earn. You'll want to earn more kudos in order to progress through the game, as the various chapters have certain kudos requirements you must meet. The kudos you earn throughout the events will add up to accomplish this. But in that regard, there are still risks. Get enough penalties, and even if you complete the event, it's possible to actually earn negative kudos, on top of quitting out of events and not achieving the goals in an event. That's where the challenge adjuster really matters. You can make it harder, but there's a chance you can blow it. It doesn't help that there's no actual restart option for the races. The only way to restart without losing kudos is to pause and hit ABXY and start at the same time for a soft reset. This takes you back to the title screen without losing kudos and auto-saving the game. Oh yeah, forced auto-saving. Furthermore, if you want to redo a certain event, you risk losing already gained kudos if you do worse than you did the first time. But sometimes you may need to redo certain events in order to hit milestones. If you really want to gamble them, you can use jokers. At certain milestones in the game, you can earn a joker. By using this before a race starts, you can double the number of kudos earned, but if you get negative kudos, it can also take away double the amount. Use them wisely. In general, I feel the system, while encouraging players to drive well, is also very risky considering you can lose them. It just doesn't feel right to lose them if you do worse the second time. It's just more difficult than when you compare it to the later PGR games. Hey, at least you can earn a bonus if you don't incur a single penalty in an event. By the way, this was the less difficult variant of how it originally was. If the unlock levels weren't so low, oh boy, it would be rough. People would get stuck way more often. The controls for the game are pretty good. There are 6 different control schemes that will probably fit someone. Want to use the triggers to accelerate and the face buttons for everything else? You can. Want to use the triggers for shifting and the face buttons for everything else? Go for it. These represent the first 2 schemes, and these will probably be fine for most players. But none of these will matter if the handling of the cars isn't the best. Metropolis Street Racer was one of the first, if not the first game of its kind, to have a hybrid style of car handling. Nothing too sim-oriented like Gran Turismo, but nothing full-on arcade-like compared to many other racers from this era, and even after it. The game requires you to have a decent feeling for the cars, know the routes well, and how to handle them. You can practice as much as you want before the real run. Getting a feel for these cars can be tricky. Some turn on a dime more easily but aren't as fast, and vice versa. I wouldn't say it's just too easy to power slide and spin out of control, like many other games that have tried to copy this style of handling, but there is a certain level of finesse that is required when handling cars here. It does take a bit to get used to, but it's not impossible. Overall, the controls and handling of the car are fine, but you really have to get used to it in order to drive well. Remember, it's not about how fast you drive, it's about how you drive fast. I know I already said it before, but if you don't learn this principle immediately, you're going to struggle with this game. Graphically, MSR really did want to show why the Dreamcast was a strong console for graphics. The main standout in this regard are the cities themselves. The research the team did at the various cities did not go to waste here. Tens of thousands of photos, hours of video footage, aerial photographs, and what did this all account to? A good basis to design the cities. Though not exactly one-to-one, they wanted to do so while having the same level of accuracy across the experience. The cities look very familiar to how they do in real life. Landmarks placed where they needed to be, roads feeling like they should when you drive them in real life. There seems to be a decent balance of realism and still driving well. Though without the unique look of each city, many of the courses would feel the same. Still, they feel nice to drive on. Models' textures are decently rendered for a Dreamcast game. Things probably do look better if you use an emulator like Flycast. There's also enough variety in the buildings and locations to make them feel different from a graphical standpoint. As if the locations themselves weren't enough, the cars themselves also look pretty good. As I mentioned earlier, one of the first things the team did after Chudley stepped back into development stuff was to increase the polygon count of the cars. This helps them look more detailed and nicer than they originally did. They look pretty accurate to how they look in real life, and having details like a driver in the car really does add a touch of realism. Though don't expect to find these cars getting damaged if you hit an object. The only weather effect is rain, and it looks alright. It's neither very distracting nor overly noticeable. It's there when it wants to be. One last cool thing. There are several different times of day to race in, and whatever time your Dreamcast is set to, in conjunction with your time zone, the time in the specific city will reflect that. I don't really have much else to say here. The footage more than speaks for itself, and it really was a good game to show off the power of the Dreamcast, even if it didn't come out at launch. Another thing that really brings this game to life is the sound design. The sound effects are very good, especially the cars. They sound pretty much how they would in real life. They even recorded actual sounds from the cars themselves. Even blew an engine of a Mercedes SLK doing this. Sounds for things like power sliding, braking, and crashing, which do vary some depending on the crash, sound not as varied, but they work. There are even thunder sound effects for when it rains on occasion. Voiceover is very minimal. You have the lady giving you the countdown and the voices of the DJs on the radio. They sound as you would expect they would. Oh yeah, speaking of the radio, how could I forget the music? That's the real standout of the entire sound design. I think this is one of the first, if not the first game to have radio stations even predating GTA 3. Though unlike that game where the stations play in real time and it's licensed music, every time you switch stations, it starts a randomly generated segment, whether an ad, a bit from a DJ, or a song. Yeah, or they're talking about whatever's leading into an actual song. This is another thing that adds to the realism, even if it's not the same as it was in GTA 3 and on. Even better, there's a good amount of variety in the music you can listen to. San Francisco has a rock, pop, and country station. London has a pop, EDM, and jazz station. Japan has an English pop or jazz funk in parts as well, variety and EDM station. If you have any particular songs you wanted to listen to, you can switch to CD mode to access all the music, though it's not exactly the easiest to navigate. If you want to select songs to play with, there is a personal option where you can set up a playlist of your favorite songs in the options menu and then just listen to that. Pretty neat, huh? As for the songs themselves, well, they all sound really good. I do prefer some over others, but I think what is here sounds pretty good. One song from the Underground sounds like it could have come straight from Ridge Racer Type 4. Let's Get It On Tonight and Live Your Life are homages to Will Smith and Oasis respectively. Hell, It Doesn't Really Matter actually samples some of the melody from Green Grove Zone Act 1 from Sonic 3D Blast on the Saturn. No surprise, Richard Jacques wrote both. He deserves a lot of the credit for this music, but also TJ Davis deserves credit for her vocals. If that name rings a bell, you've probably listened to the music of Sonic R, which also had the two collaborate. Pretty much almost all my favorite songs in the game are sung by her, and she sounds wonderful. In general, I think the music fits the time period well for when this game came out, yet it still remains timeless. Like the instant you hear it here, you just get teleported all the way back. This is actually a good thing, believe it or not. There is a decent amount of replayability thanks to the internet features, all of which have been restored thanks to Dream Pipe. You can do time trials, save your best lap times as ghost cars within the trials, as well as time attacks on designated courses from each city, even uploading your best time. You can also submit best times for each course or an overall time. You can view the top 10 best lap records for each course and upload your own, which can be downloaded by other players to challenge. And you can even view the best total kudos scores, compete against preset ghost cars, and view driving tips. However, I could not get this to work right at the time of writing/recording this. Every time I would try to, it throw up an error saying, host cannot be found. There is a problem with the network or the URL is incorrect. I'm still trying to fix this, and if anyone can help, please sound off in the comments below. Metropolis Street Racer is one of the most robust driving games ever put on a console, and maybe even in general. It looks pretty good for the time, controls well, plays well, is well built, encourages you to drive carefully and keep getting better, sounds excellent, the music is cool, it pioneered certain things like radio and games, the vibe is just perfect, and there's just so much meat on the bone to unpack, it's insane. Also, the real clock thing coinciding with the time in game is just a nice little touch. I wish more games would take advantage of older features like these, because you don't really see that and cross-save stuff in games these day and age, but oh well. However, the game can seem a bit more on the punishing side, especially since there's no restart option for races aside from soft resetting. There are some key cars missing that would really flesh out the roster. There are still some minor bugs in the game. There's no replay function, not for a lack of trying on Bizarre Creations' part. We got pre-recorded race demos instead, and it might not look as advanced as other driving games of this nature, especially since they have advanced a lot since this. Still, don't let that stop you from playing this one. I'm glad I went to see where the roots of Project Gotham Racing came from, because a strong foundation early on really helped it thrive. PAL copies go for about 14 bucks, but US copies almost go for 40 bucks. I mean, you do get a lot, but it used to go for so much cheaper over here. I don't know, emulation is still king, though. Maybe that fixing the internet bumped the price up, I don't know. Still, play this. I give Metropolis Street Racer a 3.5 out of 5. Thanks to everyone who has stuck around to this point, or if you've been here from the start. Here's to 100 or however many more reviews of this. Now, what am I gonna find to do next? Thanks for watching. Click subscribe below and check out the playlist on screen for more content. To help support the show beyond the usual means, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi on the link tree in the description. And come by my Twitch where I conquer my backlog one game at a time. See you in the next video!